Well, the Fort Calata Foundation will today host its second annual memorial lecture. This year's installation in honor of anti-apartheid activist and one of the Cradock Four murdered by South African Security Police in 1985, Fort Calata, will focus on ethical leadership. The topic looks at what some of the iconic anti-apartheid activists would have made of the current political landscape of coalition governments, the president being implicated in the Phala Phala bomb scandal, and many other hot political issues. The memorial lecture will happen this morning and will host the likes of Alan Busak and Zelda Holtzman. For more on this, we speak to the Fort Calata Foundation's co-director, Dorothy Calata. Dorothy, thank you so much for your time and thank you for joining us this morning. Talk to us about this morning's annual memorial lecture focusing on ethical leadership, given everything that we've already tabled this year alone when it comes to allegations of corruption in government. Hi, Dorothy, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I've lost you today just for a second.
All right. I was asking about the theme, ethical leadership, given everything that we've, been able to table across the years when we look at state capture and we look at government officials, facing these allegations and claims of corruption. I mean, it is a topical issue to raise, but you also raise it using a very interesting perspective. Talk to us about that.
Well, the reason why we actually decided to look at the theme of ethical leadership is because you've mentioned quite a few examples of the challenges that we are facing with leadership in our country. And one of the key things that people always complain about is leadership. And in memorializing Fort Calata at the second memorial lecture, it has become evident that we need to remind ourselves by looking at the caliber of people like Fort Calata and the Cradock Four, leaders that people in the community cannot actually forget about because they were standing for integral ethical leadership. And hence coming up then with this theme, because we would like this theme to reverberate throughout the globe if possible, because we do not think about the essence. And we often so much focus on what is wrong. And we need to remind ourselves that there has been people like Fort Calata who have actually been ethical leaders. And hence us then deciding that we will use this theme for this year, which is very key at this current moment in our country. I'm definitely sure you would agree with me that it is essential for us to look at this topic. We've invited these speakers because we believe that they will, from different angles, bring in opinions that will be extremely relevant in terms of addressing this theme. And we are hoping that many South Africans will then be able to join us so that we can be reminded that we have a base and therefore we can be able to stir up the necessary knowledge and the heritage that we have of ethical leaders, hence the theme that we're having today.
You raise such an important issue, and I think for a lot of South Africans who are going to be engaging with the theme of ethical leadership, the question is then, when we go to the voting booth and we elect our leaders, we often elect individuals who, from the start, we believe already have that ethical leadership, already have that moral compass. It's usually once they're in government that we learn that there may be a lacking or a wanting of ethics in the people that we lead. How much of the conversation is also around how people choose their leaders and the sort of thought and thinking process behind the people that we choose to, put our support behind?
I think people usually do not even think about leadership. The current electoral system in the country, as you know, is party orientated. So people usually think about what is this party going to represent to us. And when we are now going to speak and challenge people to think deeply about the people that they are going to elect, that people must start thinking and become politicized in terms of thinking about the person that they want them to lead them. It should not really be about we just want this particular party to win because this is what it represents for us. We have to go deeper and think about the fiber, the caliber of the individuals that we are going to take and put in terms of leadership. And that does not necessarily, leaders don't have to come from one party. Necessary. As long as people have got the necessary qualities to lead, and leadership means not ever forgetting about what you are representing and what you are standing for, then therefore, when we start talking about ethical leadership and we start showing people what this leadership is, what ethical leadership is, and what that represents, people will start thinking deeper before they go and put their cross on that ballot paper. And that is what we are trying to do today. We are reminding people that there have been leaders like this, and we are going to be speaking about the caliber of that leadership. And that is what people will have to seek before they put their name next to a ballot paper. And I trust South Africans. I trust them that they know what is right. They know what they want. And if people can then start standing up and remembering that their vote is their voice, people will start voting and speaking up, even to leadership. Because once people are reminded what ethical leadership is, people will know what they want. And we are definitely sure that is what we are going to address today.
Something else, Dorothy, that's quite vital to this conversation is the fact that the likes of Fort Calata and the Cradock Four were ordinary South Africans who essentially stood up against injustice. They recognized that something was horribly wrong with the legal system, with the political system at the time, and sacrificed their lives in trying to achieve freedom and liberation for the South African people. That also is a reminder for South Africans that we should not be comfortable when we do find ourselves being led by individuals who lack ethics, who lack morality, and that there should be some sort of a burning fire that is lit up to say, we can't condone this. We have to evoke some kind of change. There's a lot of criticism around South Africans being sort of passive participants when it comes to their own democratic project. Will the memorial lecture touch on that as well? While we're highlighting the need for ethical leadership, there's also a need for South Africans to take responsibility for what we do when we find ourselves in circumstances like these.
There will definitely be, we will definitely be touching on that topic. We will definitely be doing that. I can maybe just quote briefly, as we've had like a pre-session last night in a cocktail evening where Dr. Busak was speaking to the people and reminding them that actually the Cradock Four, Cradock actually as a town, has been associated with such strong leadership that has stemmed not only from the period of the Cradock Four, but starting from the period of Calata, one of the first general secretaries of the ANC, and the longest serving general secretary. And the reason for that was because of the type of leader that he was. He was the type of ethical leader that people in Cradock, even today, cannot forget. So we are hoping that through the memorial lecture, we will be tapping onto those essential things and reminding people of the power that they have. There has been ethical leaders. Definitely, we will be stating that. And sometimes we, as these families, we get ashamed that it seems as if the lives of our fathers that they have lived are actually even being silenced, you know. There's been a lot of silencing around the narrative of the Cradock Four, and we know that the Cradock Four has actually stood for something very strong. That is why the apartheid government could not do otherwise but kill them. So last night we were reminded by a member who used to work under the leadership of the Cradock Four that they were actually called to come to exile because it was clear that they were going to be killed, and they refused to go to exile because they knew that what they stood for. They stood for truth and they stood for people. And one of the things he said was they actually stated clearly that they are not going to exile and run away from the problem. They had rather die for the rights of the people because they knew exactly what they were standing for.
Right.
So now today, you know, people are not even standing for any principle. People are even afraid to stand up and speak up against leaders who are doing wrong because people are so much vested into investments, future investments in terms of what am I going to gain materially. And therefore people become silenced. Even if they see when something is wrong, people keep quiet. And it is about time that we stand up, even if it is against authority. When something is wrong, we should be.
All right. Unfortunately, our line is letting us down.
To keep quiet because
Dorothy,
we are soothing and begging to have bread tomorrow.
All right. Unfortunately, our line is letting us down there, but that was the Fort Calata Foundation co-director Dorothy Calata talking to us there about the annual memorial lecture that's taking place later today. We'll